After the mother of murdered Jimmy Mizen appeared on my show on GB News yesterday, the drill rapper who murdered her son Jimmy has been sent back to jail. But the BBC, who promoted his sick music, has still not apologised. Now let me read out some of his lyrics, but a warning that some of the following lines could be disturbing to some viewers. Sharpen up my blade, I've got to keep those necessary. Stay alert and kept it ready. Any corner could be deadly. Stuck it on a man and watched him melt like Ben and Jerry's. Well, disgusting stuff, making profit out of murder. And I'm joined now by criminal defence lawyer Nick Freeman. Nick, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have your company. So this disgusting individual is back in jail where he belongs. Do you think justice has been done?
Oh, well, in part. I mean, he shouldn't have been released in the first place, in my view, because clearly he's pulled the wool over the parole board's eyes. He's attended every programme that was available to him. Obviously, when you go to prison, he was 19, you've got a life sentence, and the purpose of prison is to punish and to help you rehabilitate. And he's attended all these programmes, clearly portrayed himself as somebody who he actually is very different from, because the lyrics of the songs that you've just read out indicate that he's not only boastful about the horrendous crime that he's committed, but he's actually obsessed with death. It's still very much present on his mind. And in my view, from those lyrics, he poses he presents an insatiable appetite to want to kill and poses a huge threat to society. And one wonders on that basis how he was ever released. So in answer to your question, has justice been done? Belatedly, yes, but he shouldn't have actually been released in the first place. And I'm not sure what sort of psychological assessment he underwent before he persuaded the parole board that he was actually a person who had learnt from his errors and was actually a new person. He's now 35. He's been out for about 18 months. I think that there are all sorts of issues here, and one of them must be, what do we do with mass rappers? Because I'm sure that this will not be the first time that this has happened. And don't we doesn't the media owe a responsibility to all its viewers and listeners and watchers to make sure that whoever we're portraying, we need to know who they are. And maybe this has taught us that we actually need to ensure that we know who is singing, who is acting, whatever they're doing. So maybe there will be movements to prevent this happening in the future. And that's one good thing that's come out of it. And of course, so now he's got a huge problem. He's got a life sentence. He's been recalled for breach of his conditions. He's going to have a huge problem now persuading the parole board that he is a changed man, because I doubt very much anyone's going to believe a word of what he says.
I think you're exactly right to talk about the duty of care of any artist. If only the BBC had done that, they might not have caused such emotional trauma to Jimmy's poor mother, who I had on the show yesterday. She was recoiling when she was having to see pictures of the murderer of her boy sat on a supercar. But luckily, he's also blessed with unbridled stupidity because he went back to an area of London where he wasn't meant to be as a breach of his bail conditions. As you said, he's been glorifying the murder of Jimmy Mizen in his lyrics. No remorse. What does happen next legally? I mean, how long could this guy end up staying in Clink for?
He could stay there for the rest of his life. I don't think he will. But when you're released on licence, he's not actually on bail. He's on licence, and what that means is he's serving his prison sentence in the community. He's now breached those conditions. He's back in prison, continuing to serve his life sentence. And now, I mean, the parole board will be notified within 28 days, and he will now, I anticipate, serve many, many more years, because, as I say, he's pulled the wool over their eyes once, and it's quite clear he does pose a huge threat. He has a cavalier disregard to compliance of his conditions, but the lyrics of these songs indicate what's prevalent in his mind, and it's not something that we really want in our society. So, the duty is to ensure that we're safe, and he will only be released now, as he should have been in the first place, when the parole board is 100% satisfied that he is a different man from the man we know he is at the moment.
So, Nick Freeman, may I ask you, if you were representing, say, Margaret Mizen in this case, and you were acting against this individual, what would your demand be in terms of how long he should serve in prison from this point onwards, Mr. Fahri?
Well, I would want to make sure that before there will be a thorough psychological assessment by at least 2 psychiatrists, psychologists as well, to make sure that he's changed. The programs, clearly, he attends them as many people do. And sometimes they do good, and sometimes people come out of prison, there's a punitive and rehabilitative effect, a remedial effect, and it works. But in this case, it clearly hasn't. And, the programs are just, for him, a license to pull the wool over everyone's eyes. So to answer your question, the parole board will want to make sure, they're not going to want to make this mistake again. So I think that probably the better question would be, how as a defence lawyer would you persuade a parole board that he is now eligible to be released? Because I think now he's going to spend many, many more years before he is released. When he is released, if he is, the licence conditions will be so stringent, he'll hardly be able to breathe.
Well, maybe he can make some rap music to the sound of the world's smallest violin while he's back inside. Nick Freeman, thank you very, very much for joining us on GB News today.